New World is here, and Amazon Game Studios have finally released their MMORPG, and so far the reception has been very, very positive. This is a great combination of crafting, leveling, PvE and PvP, and so far I'm really enjoying the experience. So New World had a tricky run up to release. It was due back in March 2020, but it went through some high profile delays, plus an alpha, a closed beta, and then recently an open beta as well. I think the team must have learned a lot from the alpha and the closed beta, as plenty of changes and quality of life improvements have been made. So New World blends RuneScape-like crafting with exploration, questing, loot, plus there's a massive PvP element too, so there's something here for everyone. So in the early hours of the game, you're going to be put through your paces and introduced to all the systems that work really well together, and then you're introduced to these zombie-like enemies and also the corruption, plus run through a few tutorials about hunting, gathering and also crafting. So once you complete the initial intro, then it's off to your main settlement to get your bearings. Well, the map in New World is very big and made up of about a dozen or so regions. When you start, you're going to be randomly placed in a region, but each one has its settlement. So you've got an inn and various vendors for you to get acquainted with. The first thing you notice with New World is the sheer satisfaction from gathering and crafting. So cutting down trees, mining for iron, picking bushes and hunting for animals, it all feels really good. So this is one of the main elements of the game, as you've got a bunch of skills you can level up through gathering and crafting, and you're going to need to level up these skills to be able to get rarer items as you progress throughout the game. So hunting and gathering early on is a great way to get your first pieces of gear, and then it's simply a matter of taking these materials back to the settlement and turning them into something you can use, whether it's armour or weapons. So once you've gathered these materials and then turn them into something nice, then you can trade items with your fellow inhabitants of Aeternum if you want. So as you play, you're going to be gathering plenty of loot, whether you find loot drops from killing animals or enemies, or you craft these items yourself. You're going to be gaining materials all the time, and this can either be stored at the settlement or traded via the trading post. So after a few hours in the game, you will get your bearings, you'll get accustomed to the various vendors in the town and also the quests. So quests are going to be one of the main ways to level up in New World, and that includes the main story quest, town quests and also faction quests as well. So after an hour or so, you're going to be introduced to the three main factions in the game. You've got the Marauders, the Syndicate and also the Covenant. So your faction is going to be another source of quests, so you're never really going to be short of things to do. Now outside the main story quests, side quests, they're fairly standard MMO style tasks that include gathering 20 pieces of iron ore or kill 5 sheep and skin them, that kind of mission. Then you've also got fetch quests and also other quests where you have to go to a location, read some scrolls. So there's a limited amount of variety when it comes to quests, but so far in the early game I haven't got bored of these, so it will be telling when I get more to the mid game and closer to the end game. So numbers going up is a phrase we use a lot in these games, especially with the explosion of loot-based games over the past 5 years. So New World implements this pretty well, always making you feel like you're making progress towards something. So more often than not, you're going to be put out on a quest and you've got a clear objective, and then you're going to be distracted by wanting to either gather some items or you're going to be tempted to go off and kill a rare enemy. So also you've got random world spawns for the evil red corruption, and they act as kind of random public world events. So there is a pretty good variety of things to do and loads of stuff to keep you busy. Well, PvP is a big part of New World and probably the component that I'm least familiar with at the moment, as I'm still leveling up my character and I'm getting battle ready, although I do have my first war scheduled for tomorrow. You don't necessarily have to engage in PvP if you don't want to. When you're in your settlement, you can set your PvP flag to be on or off. But there is an incentive to turn on your PvP flag though, as you're going to get plenty of XP for killing enemy factions. At the moment, it's fairly novel, and having a little skirmish with the enemy faction is fun, but you do have to be careful though, because if you die, you either have to go back to your camp or to the nearest settlement, and in theory, that could be really far away. There's no fast travel in New World at the moment, so if you die and you haven't set up your camp, then you could be walking back to where you are, and that is going to take quite a lot of time. So PvP within the factions is one thing, but then you've got massive 50 versus 50 wars, where a neighbouring region will try and invade yours, and they're going to try and take over your settlement. So I've only seen what these are like through YouTube videos at the moment. I haven't taken part in one myself. As I mentioned, I do have one tomorrow, so I will report back on what that is like. And it definitely is something I'm looking forward to, and I think it's going to give a whole nother angle to New World and a major motivation to get leveled up as soon as possible, so I can help out my faction, that is Syndicate by the way, and take the fight to my neighbouring regions. So there's plenty of weapons to get to grips with, and each one has its own levelling path. So for example, you've got a long sword, you've got a rapier, a fire staff, a life staff, ice gauntlet, a bow and arrow, and axe. There's loads of variety and lots of opportunities to play the way you want to play. So you've got close range combat with the swords and the axes, and you've got range combat with the fire staff, the ice gauntlet, and also the bow and arrow as well. So combine these weapons with the ability to create your own armour, then you could kit yourself out to be a knight or a wizard. You know, it's entirely up to you. So given the game is classless, you can pretty much choose how you want to play, although like any good MMO, you're going to spec into a type of player, like a tank, a healer, a rogue, a ranger, a DPS, that type of thing. So I think there's a lot to be excited about with New World, and I was lucky enough I got to play in the alpha in 2020, and then in the closed beta, and it was definitely one of my most anticipated games of 2021, and now it's out, I'm really enjoying my time with it so far. So the game feels really optimised now compared to the alpha and the closed beta, and it's clearly been on a few rounds of feedback, but in regards to the negative, the game sometimes does feel a little bit somewhat confused about what it wants to be. So I'm interested to get to the end game and see how it feels there, because like any MMO, really the game starts at the end game. So at the moment I'm in the early stages of the game, somewhere between 10 and 15 hours, and I'm getting to grips with the quests, the items, the levelling up. And I still have a long way to go to hit the max level of 60, but I'm really looking forward to that journey. You know, I really want to join a company, take part in more PvP, and level up so I can take part in the 50 versus 50 battles. You know, I love my loot-based games, and New World appears to have plenty of it. You know, whether I'm finding it through loot drops from dungeons, or crafting it myself after a long day chopping down trees, or farming for iron and other precious materials. You know, I'd recommend New World to players who like loot-based games, and if you want to get stuck into a new MMO. So I totally missed the boat on World of Warcraft, and the hype surrounding that, and also Final Fantasy XIV at launch. It's not often you get in on the ground floor of an MMO at the start, and I'm really excited to see how this is going to evolve. You know, the game had a great start on Steam with a peak player count of about 760,000 players on launch day, and I think this weekend it's gone even higher to 800,000 concurrent players, and it has had massive viewership on Twitch as well. You know, the servers did buckle under the pressure of the first few days, but I'm sure Amazon will get to grips with it, and there also have been a few problems with queuing as well. But so far, I'm having great fun, but I am interested to see the longevity of the game and what it's going to be like to play in the endgame. But I'll be back really soon and let you know how I get on. I'd love to hear what you think of New World, so let me know by signing up to Patreon at patreon.com/thisweekinvideogames. I'd love to hear your thoughts on New World, and I'll read them out on the next episode of the podcast. Well, that is it for my first impressions of New World. Really, really good, and it's definitely one that's got its hooks into me. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to This Week in Video Games. If you want to join the community, check out the Discord link in the description, or you can follow me on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the other videos on the channel. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.